Hi, I'm Ashley Adamson, and welcome. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, we talk about personal growth and spirituality topics, and you're more than welcome to be here, even if you're cis or you're just questioning. This is just for everyone. But I do talk about pretty much trans topics, and that today we're going to talk about the trans narrative. We're going to talk about how it can be hurtful to trans people, and also I think we're going to touch on the trans people that tell the trans narrative and how that can also be harmful to trans people. Yeah, juicy topic, right? I wanted to talk to you about this because this is an ongoing topic in media discourse. Like, what is the trans narrative? Like, how do we make decisions around it? How do we make policy around it, et cetera, et cetera? It's this really big topic. But I think what's missing from the equation is also the personal development aspect, the thing that how the trans narrative can affect how other trans people see themselves or identify that they are trans when they're questioning, because it can be harmful if we don't think about how it's positioned. By the way, I have been invited to speak at the trans parade, so I just wanted to say hi. I'm super excited about that. I'm going to be speaking in Berlin at the Trans Pride Parade this Saturday, so if you're out there, maybe I'll see you. And this is practice for giving that speech, which will have to be condensed into 5 minutes. So we'll see how this goes, but I wanted to touch on this. So the trans narrative, I think the first thing that we need to be aware of when we're thinking about the trans narrative is there's always multiple narratives, and there's a dominant narrative. And that dominant narrative is perpetuated by the cis people because they are the dominant ideological structure that we live in. And so when we pass on our narrative to the dominant, the people that control the dominant ideology, we have to think about how we convey our story, because they are going to interpret it in such a way where they are going to continue to perpetuate it. Sorry, I just had a protein shake, a little dry. But I think even LGBTQIA plus organizations can perpetuate normative trans narratives, such as, I've always known that I was a woman, or I've always known that I'm a man, or because I'm trans, it means I want to have a penis, or I want to have a vagina when I don't have that. And so there's kind of there's these two topics of, oh yeah, you need to know when you're a child that you're basically trans. That's the only way to basically be a valid trans person, is to know that. And if you don't have that, you must not be trans. And I'll just mark that one right there as something that held me back from realizing that I was trans. I did not realize that I was trans because I didn't fit into the narrative that I had heard from everyone else. Oh, you'll know when you're a child and all of that. Not everyone's like that. And I talked about this in another video, and I heard from a lot of other people that said their experience was also not like that. So what's going on? Why do we have to perpetuate this narrative that everyone's always known? Let me think. Because the cis narrative likes that. The cis narrative likes the idea that this person has known before their sexuality and all of that has developed that they are trans. There's something romantic in the idea of a child knowing inherently that they're the opposite sex, because it has nothing to do with the sex aspect. And I think the sex aspect is a frightening and loaded topic, especially for trans women, because then we get into autogynephilia, and we get into oh, are you just cross-dressing, or is this something that you have a fetish with, blah, 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 blah. And it's such a loaded topic. So why do we perpetuate it? I think it's honestly because it's out of convenience. It's so much more digestible to say, oh, they identified as a woman, as a kid, and so they've kept that narrative going, and so yeah, they deserve to be trans. They deserve to transition. And no one has to prove that they are trans. If they are trans and that's how they identify, they're trans. Now, I think there is kind of a fine line here. Some people may jump to conclusions that they're trans and think that is a solution to their problem that they're trying to deal with by being trans, and that's not the right way to go about dealing with your problems. Being trans is not going to solve any of your problems, and if you think it does, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, that's not to say that I mean, for you, like, once you transition, you kind of solve some of your own problems, right? That's true. You can solve some problems, but there are some problems you cannot solve by transitioning, and you create more problems for yourself by transitioning, like not being accepted and all of that. So, you know, it's kind of like this, it's a little bit nuanced, it's way more complex than what we talk about in the normal, like, transgender narrative. And I just wanted to call that out because that's like super frustrating for me that people keep believing that you have to know from being a child. The second thing is, before I get into the second thing, what do you think about that first thing? Can you let me know down in the comments down below? Can I get like an amen, or can I get a hell no? Like, we always need to talk about it that way. The second thing is this idea of like sex and genitals and gender, and how if you are a trans woman, then you should have a vagina, or if you're a trans man, you should get a penis. And yes, a lot of trans men and trans women go for this genital surgery, and it's like super helpful for them. Sorry, not genital surgery, you know, gender correction, GCS. Yeah, I'm not very good with these terms. But not everyone wants to get their genitals changed. I have lived without my genitals changed, and I'm fine for now. I might eventually, but this is the weird thing. I might eventually. The thinking of that, where that comes from, is because it's more convenient for me when dealing with cis people. What the fuck? Like, how is that a valid narrative for me to even believe in? Because now I'm talking about making me more convenient to cis people and their cis narrative. And I don't want to make it sound like there's a war, ideological war, that the trans population needs to have with the cis narrative. But we have to check ourselves, and we have to think about how much we're pandering to their expectations and understanding of what being trans is, versus progressing the narrative and saying, you know what, like, here's my experience. I thought that I just had a fetish in dressing up and being feminine, and that was actually my backdoor to not understanding that deep down in my subconscious, there was actually a woman that wanted to be expressed. And she was just finding it through the only means that she could express it, that I would only listen through. And that was like through like a sexual gratification, all that. But it's not autogynephilia, because I don't fetishize myself. I'm not trying to like fall in love with being like a sexy woman or anything like that. It's just, what is it? It is just when you shut down all of the parts of you that will not listen to your true self is still going to try and find some pathway to get across to you something that it wants to speak. It can speak through anxiety, it can speak through fear, it can speak through little thought patterns, it can speak through really large thought patterns, it can speak through sex, it can speak through the best way to listen to it is honestly to meditate and just listen. But it can speak through so many different avenues, because it's literally just like the self is like a liquid consciousness kind of thing. It just is, and it's yours, and it's inherently you. But sometimes you don't want to listen to it. And when you're dealing with repression and suppression of these thoughts, it kind of like gets forced out in certain ways that it wants to express. And for me, it was through the sexuality kind of angle, but I did that, I got that done. So that's kind of like the second thing I just want to talk about, is this idea that you always need to have genitals changed or aligned. I know it's like super convenient to think of trans people as, oh, well, if they're a trans woman, then they need to have a vagina to be a valid person, because I equate gender with genitals, says the cis person. And yeah, like for a trans person that's like, oh, like I don't want my penis or I don't want my vagina and I would like to have the appropriate genitals, cis people can go, okay, cool, you're valid, because once again, you're willing to chop off your penis, and I say that like, you know, how they might say it, or you're willing to get a dick because that's how much you care about it. And if you care about it that much, then obviously you deserve it. You deserve to be trans and you deserve to transition. And you can see this reflected in the healthcare system, especially the ones in the United States, where you can't even get boob surgery covered in most health insurance. I know you can. I actually have a trans friend who got her boob surgery covered. But like most health insurances that deal with trans healthcare, they only give you the genital surgery. They say everything else is superficial. They say like removing your hair, your facial hair is superficial, getting facial feminization is superficial. There are like a handful of health insurances that let you do that. So there's always a caveat, right? And getting breast surgery is superficial. I mean, like, okay, another video, but my boobs, like, I have boobs. My boobs I got from surgery, and it's been super helpful for my body self-image. Yes, it is more aesthetically pleasing, but I didn't do this just to be aesthetically pleasing. I did this because it was going to feel better, to feel more valid. And I think any woman would, like, if she could get free breast surgery and she had like really small breasts and she wanted to change that, I think she could feel more validated by it. I'm going in a lot of directions today. I apologize. But I'm just going to pull it back now and just say, like, you know, like, not everyone wants to get a vagina. Not everyone wants to get a penis. And we should allow them to get it if they want to. But we should also kind of take a step back and say, you know, you can be a woman and not have to get a vagina. You can be a man and not have to have a penis. Like, what's so hard about that? I don't get it. It just kind of like, it riles me a little bit, because to think that I can only be a valid woman if I have a vagina, it kind of just throws me under the bus and says, okay, well, like, I guess I can't do anything here. Bye. Right? Yeah. I think that's all I'm going to say for today. Let me know what you think. And if you want to join me in the chats, I'm in my Discord group, which is free. You can hit that link down below. And thank you to my patrons. Thank you to the people that have supported me. If you want to send me a message through that platform, I'm always here. So I really appreciate you. And yeah, I'll see you in another episode. Bye.